Hey there everybody, my name's Tyler, welcome back to 3 to Pass, and this is my Gramgrace deck profile, brought to you by popular demand. You know, Gramgrace has got a lot of fans. So first off, peep the sleeves. I got these because they kind of match that. It looks cool. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get into the deck. So for the ride line, I am running the Blaster Dark / Blaster Blade ride line. Mostly just to not have to accidentally call my orders from the deck with the Blaster Dark ride line. That was a problem before. So just having this to call out Wingle Brave and retire it to get Blaster Dark's ability procs off really well. And, you know, having that ability to retire one of their rear guards if they end up trying to rush you and getting 2 drive checks is very strong. So it gives the deck a very strong grade 2 game, which really helps pushing it into the grade 3 turns where you want to try to swing for kills with criticals. So that's been working out really well so far. And then next, we will jump into our grade 1s. First off, I'm running 2 copies of Becoming a Knight Befitting the Future. I'm running this card because I play in a meta with a lot of stride decks. And even outside of fighting against stride decks, it can get upwards of a 20k shield. And generically, it's typically going to hit for like 15k when it guards. It's a very good card. I run it at 2 because I don't want to get clunked with it in my hand, as I already run a lot of orders. But, you know, it being a blitz order does give you that defense, and it being a grade 1 also helps just early game if they try to rush you to have a little bit of resources to guard with. Now, that being said, I also run 2 copies of this card, Magic of Cycling Wind Perius. I only run 2 copies because, unfortunately, in the meta that we're in, every 5 attack deck somehow mysteriously has a way to get rid of a rear guard when it attacks. So this doesn't really proc off as much as you would like or hope, but I run it at 2 copies because I run the half of the Keter pile with the order that calls stuff from hand. So you either throw it down and later on it's going to be a perfect guard, or you throw it down and, you know, it's a little bit of a booster. So it's nice to have this spot. This card's a flex spot. If anything would get taken out first, it would be this. But right now I'm running it at 2, and it hasn't hindered me, and occasionally has helped me. So 2 is very good where we're at on that. That being said, I run 2 Obligator Dragons. Now, if I were to bump up anything, it would probably be this to 4 copies if I take out the other 2 copies of that card we just shown. As I run a lot of orders, this card helps cycle through them, gets them out of the deck when I don't have them in hand. Overall, just a good card, and with Gramgrace's new promo calling itself from the drop zone, the discard a card from hand doesn't end up hindering you too much when you can call it back later. So very solid option, running that at 2 currently. This doesn't really need enough to be said, but we're running 4 perfect guards, the good kind. That's about it on those. I opt to run 4 of those, actually, because I don't run Sanctitude due to the fact that I also run the hostage package, so these can be thrown down as boosters, and then I can just perfect guard with them from the field. So that works pretty well. And Sanctitude's just another order that can get clogged in my hand otherwise. And then, moving on to our grade 2s, I run 2 of the Divine Sister Financier. She's a really good card. I really like the way the hostage package is playing in this deck. She's a Soul Blast, which is important because later on when you put your very good grade 3 rear guard into the Soul, this is a good way to Soul Blast it back out since it can call itself from drop late game if you need to have that one to be able to call. Or early game, you know, a Soul Blast doesn't hinder this deck too much, so you can call out the order that she's associated with. That being said, I run 2 copies of her along with 2 copies of her order. If anything, I were to make changes other than Obligator Dragon being bumped up, I might bump these up to 3, but right now 2 each is really good. This makes it so everything I throw on rear guard having to dump from hand for the order that I'm going to show you soon, capable of blocking, and even if I want to throw down a trigger to boost my front row, since Gramgrace's front row units typically lack power, this gives them the ability to just go to the Guardian Circle anyway, and still gives me a lot of advantage in defense. So that being said, very, very good cards. I love these. I might bump them each up to 3. And then on top of that, this itself is just a 10k shield when it's called from that order she's associated with. So also, just really great defense, even more. So next up, I run 3 Dyphons. I only run 3 because counterblasts are kind of heavy in this deck with the orders that I run, on top of just the grade 3 itself now that calls from the drop to give Gramgrace a drive check. Is also a counterblast, and I'd rather be doing that than doing this. So I'm running him at 3. The main reason he sits in this deck still is because he gives those grade 3s in my middle column 5k, which helps me hit for magic numbers if I have 2 in the front or even just 1. So right now he's at 3, and he's been working very well. No problems at all with him at 3. Next up, we have this card here, Adderolf. Now, he's a pretty solid card. He gets his little mini guard restrict when you get a extra critical on him with Gramgrace's ability. That always makes it to where they're going to have to guard with 2 or more. He seemed a lot better to me in the beginning than he actually was, but being that he's a grade 2, you know, you could still throw him down in your rear guard in the front and have him do something impactful. And he's not a bad card overall, just because late game that guard restrict does come in clutch if they're just scrapping at cards in their hand to guard. So running him at 3 until further notice when we get a better grade 2 that I can replace him with. Not a bad card though. Very solid. Then I'm running 4 of Kyrebrae. I'm running 4 of him for the same reason that I'm running the hostage package grade 2, the Divine Sister. The counterblast is not a problem too much when he's plussing you a card, and the Soul Blast initially seems like a problem until you realize you can Soul Blast for grade 3 to call back from drop. That's your main unit you want in your back row, so he helps it filter back to the drop zone to call back to the rear guard. That being said, he's also going to call and then call out another unit or a potential booster for himself to be able to hit for some magic numbers too. Even if you don't call anything good, you just call like a trigger because you didn't have anything else to call, you could still guard with that with your hostage package order, which is the one the Divine Sister plays straight from the deck. So that being said, I run him at 4 because all of my main units I run at 3. So he's really good to call all of them out. Having him at the most helps me keep others at a little bit lower number to have some more space for some more cards. Which brings me into the bread and butter of the deck. I'm running 4 of this order. Everybody knows it. It's the Keter Pile order. I'm running it at 4 because I think that Gramgrace initially when I was playing it was having a problem with defense and being able to just call a field. This solved that problem immediately. So this card, even early game, it doesn't hinder you much. It's a counterblast. You're drawing 2 cards and you're dumping cards that you're going to guard with your hostage package order. Even if they're not cards you wanted to call initially, they're going to be free shields for you to guard with. And the fact that the Divine Sister plays the order from the deck doesn't interfere with your 1 order per turn restriction. So running this at 4, never been a problem. An Obligator Dragon can just play it from the deck and then put it back on the bottom of the deck if you end up not opening it within your hand. So there's a lot of options to hit this, and it has a lot of versatility in the deck. So next off, we're going into grade 3s. This one doesn't need much said about it. We're running 3 copies of Gramgrace. His Persona Ride is just too strong, giving it to the entire field. That's pretty much what wins you most games, is when you hit your Persona Ride turn. Either that, or it prepares to kill them the final turn when it dwindles down their hand. Very, very good Persona Ride ability, just because of the fact that it boosts the whole board. So I'm running him at 3. And then I've hyped this card up enough times. I'm running 3 of his new promo. Now I'm running 3 because, for one, it is a grade 3. It doesn't have shield. And I want this deck to be able to outlast the opponent enough to where they're out of perfect cards and I can smack them with crits. So I'm running it at 3. Like I said, Kyrebrae can call it from the deck if need be, or even if you have it in your hand early game, you discard it, call it back to rear guard with its ability to energy blast and call to the rear guard. And then after Gramgrace's back row rear guard attacks, it goes into the soul. So all those abilities that I have to soul blast just lets her keep coming back more and more. She's a really good change to the deck because the old unit that gave Gramgrace the drive check was a soul blast 1, and I believe discard a card as well. she's literally just a counterblast. And I know the deck looks like it goes through counterblasts a lot. It really doesn't. I've never once, I think, had a problem where I'm like, damn, I'm out of counterblasts. Because even if you do feel like you're getting low, you just hold off on using an ability. You know, you don't have to play the order if you don't want to. This should be your primary thing you want to do. So late game, you want to be doing this. Early game, you want to be spamming out that order as much as you can. Very, very good card. So with that being said, that brings us lastly to our triggers. I'm running a 2-2 split of just generic heals and the heals that get extra power when the opponent is a higher grade. I'm playing these because, like I said, I'm in a meta with Stride decks, so running 2 of these is, you know, it gives me a little bit more defensive option. Or if they go first, it keeps me from getting rushed down without being able to survive. Other than that, it's just a 10k shield, and it doesn't really bother me too much to just have to throw it down for a boost and then guard with the orders. So a 2-2 split of these has been doing very well. Moving on next, I'm doing 3 of the 20k shield fronts. Now this works really good in the same aspect that I've been saying. The hostage packet order is what helps play this deck, keeps it alive long enough to dwindle them down and kill them with crits. You call this to your back row, it's a 4k booster, it lets your grade 2s attack the Vanguard and hit, and then you just pull it to the Guardian Circle and guard for 20k. And then on top of that, them being fronts with Gramgrace's front row not really getting impactful power, the fronts boosted enough to where they hit. So very good cards, which also segues me well into this. This might come as a surprise, but I'm running 6 fronts. These are the new fronts that came out in one of the recent sets that go to the soul. Right now, the deck doesn't really have too much of a soul problem, but before I was running this, there were times where I got into a game and wasn't able to soul blast. So I'm running it in here just on the off chance that I need it. Other than that, it's a front in itself that also boosts the front row, and its ability is when it's retired from Guardian Circle, put it in the soul. So even if you use the order, move it there, it gets retired, it goes to soul anyway. So good resources all around, and it being a front helps the front row hit. Then that being said, none of these have abilities. I am running 5 criticals. You could opt to run the ones that go into the soul when they boost, but I like leaving my triggers on field anyway to have them block with the order. It's just a 15k shield on field that I could use at any time when I need to, and that's more impactful to me than having that little bit of extra soul when I already have the other cards that help me with soul. So I'm running 5 fronts here, just generic. And that brings us to our last card, which is up for debate. You could change it out how you want, but I'm running the new white over trigger. I'm running this because your Vanguard and your back row grade 3 are always going to be swinging with crits. After about 2 rounds of going at the opponent with this, they're not going to have a lot of perfect cards in hand. They're probably going to have maybe 1 left after about 2 rounds of your grade 3. So I use this because if they don't perfect guard it on that attack Gramgrace swings, he's going to retire any Guardian that they have on the Guardian Circle, and it's going to hit through with a critical. Now that being said, also Gramgrace doesn't have any sort of removal in his deck, so this is a board wipe in itself. It helps to get rid of the pesky units that I can't get rid of myself, and it helps you just draw more cards. Like I said, staying alive long enough to smack them with the crits when their defenses are down is what we're aiming for. So this all around just helps with everything. On top of that, you damage check it, they can't play anymore. It's an over trigger. It's very good. I really like this card. So far, I've hit it maybe twice since I put it in, and it's impacted pretty well. So with that being said, that is my Gramgrace deck profile. Thank you to the people who have been giving lots of support to Gramgrace in the comments below. You know, Gramgrace was my first deck I started building again when I got back into Standard, and I've always loved him, so I'm happy to see other people are loving him too. Let me know if you enjoyed this deck list. Let me know some other cards you might suggest for the deck list if I maybe missed some. And with that being said, peace.